Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's your host, and today we're diving into a world so bright, so shiny, so sparkly, that it practically blinds you with nostalgia. Disney. You know Disney, the place where dreams come true, where childhood lives forever, where animals talk, where no one questions the existence of magic, and where everyone seems weirdly okay with singing their emotions to strangers. But behind all that sugar-coated sweetness, there's a side of Disney that is, let's just say, a little less magical. Sometimes strange, sometimes hilarious, and sometimes the kind of thing that makes you pause, blink twice, and mutter, "Wait, did Disney really do that?" And yes, they did. Today we're peeling back that lovely shimmering Disney curtain and stepping into a universe of odd decisions, bizarre real-life consequences, questionable Easter eggs, and creative choices that have traumatized more adults than children. By the end of this video, your childhood might feel slightly shaken, but hey, that's part of the fun. We start with a story that sounds almost too absurd to be true, but absolutely happened. When The Princess and the Frog came out, kids instantly loved Tiana. She was hardworking, ambitious, charming, and rocking that iconic green dress. But the scene that truly captured their attention was the moment she kissed a frog. To adults, it's adorable. To children, it's a set of instructions. So naturally, a surprising number of young kids watched the movie, went straight into the backyards, grabbed the first frog they could find, and kissed it. 'Cause why not? Maybe the frog becomes a prince. Maybe the frog hands you a crown. Maybe the frog just needs affection. Unfortunately, what really happened was salmonella. A wave of kids, over 50 documented cases, ended up sick after passionately smooching amphibians. Hospitals were confused. Parents were embarrassed. Frogs were probably traumatized. But the good news is that nobody was seriously harmed. And the lesson learned was a powerful one. Disney magic does not protect you from nature. Also, frogs are not princes. Frogs are frogs. Let them remain frogs. Now, speaking of questionable decisions, we move to one of the most legendary rumors in Disney history, the mysterious adult messages hidden in animation. Everyone has heard people whisper about it at some point. It's the kind of thing you don't notice when you're young, but the moment someone points it out, you can never unsee it again. Take The Lion King, for example. There's a moment when Simba collapses on a cliff and dust rises into the night sky. Pause it at just the right moment, and the dust forms the letters S-E-X. Disney insists. It actually says S-F-X, a little signature from the special effects team. But if that's the case, where exactly is the F? Because in the scene, it definitely looks more like an E. The real kicker, this isn't an isolated case. Look at the official poster for Tangled and you'll find that Rapunzel's hair seems to spell out the same word if you stare long enough. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe animators are bored. Or maybe Disney is just accidentally horny. It's hard to say. But whether intentional or not, it definitely adds layers to films you once considered safe. And speaking of surprising movie details, let's talk about something that blows people's minds every time. Sleeping Beauty barely appears in her own movie. Even though the film literally carries her name, Princess Aurora is on screen for just 18 minutes of the 76-minute runtime. She speaks only 18 lines. Her entire role consists of wandering through a forest, touching a cursed spinning wheel, falling asleep dramatically, looking gorgeous while unconscious, and waking up to a kiss. She does less than any Disney protagonist ever. And yet she's iconic, proof that sometimes you don't need to work hard to become legendary. You just need perfect hair and a good nap. But while Sleeping Beauty gets away with minimal effort, Carl from Up gets away with the impossible. One of the most emotional, heart-wrenching, beautiful scenes in Disney Pixar history is when Carl ties thousands of colorful balloons to his house and lifts off into the sky. It's magical, whimsical, and scientifically ridiculous. Physicists calculated the real number of balloons needed to lift a small house, and the answer is about 9.4 million. Not thousands, not tens of thousands, millions. Carl would have needed years of non-stop balloon inflation. Imagine that montage. No music, no adventure, just Carl with a hand pump, breathing heavily, slowly losing the will to live. By the time he inflated even half of the balloons, the movie would have ended, and so would Carl. But speaking of Disney's real-world rules, here's something truly wild. For most of Disneyland's early history, men with beards weren't allowed into the park. This was a rule implemented by Walt Disney himself. He believed facial hair made the environment less clean-cut and less family-friendly. You could be the nicest man alive, but if you had a full beard, Disneyland basically said, no magic for you. This rule lasted until 2012, which means for a half a century, bearded dads had to stand at the gate while their families rode the teacups. Meanwhile, Walt Disney himself had a mustache, so apparently the rule was no facial hair unless it's my. Now, let's zoom out and look at Disney World, which is so enormous that people underestimate just how massive it is. The entire property spans 25,000 acres, roughly the size of San Francisco and twice the size of Manhattan. Let that sink in. Disney World is not just a theme park, it's a kingdom. It's practically a sovereign nation. It has its own transportation system, its own fire department, its own internal government structures, its own lake, its own everything. If you decided to stay one night in every Disney hotel room, it would take you 68 years. That means if you started today, you'd finish sometime in your 90s. Disney is a lifetime commitment. Now, if you're still holding on to the innocence of your childhood, brace yourself. Disney once used real human skeletons in the original Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Fake skeletons in the 1960s looked too plastic, too shiny, too Halloween decoration. So Disney partnered with medical labs and obtained real skeletons to decorate the ride. Real skulls, real ribs, real femurs, real former people. Over time, Disney replaced most of the remains with artificial ones, but many believe at least one original skull remains, the one embedded in a headboard above the bed in the ride's treasure room. Next time you pass by it, just remember that someone's actual bones are part of the attraction. And speaking of bones, let's move to fish bones, or clownfish specifically. Finding Nemo may be one of the cutest movies ever created, but scientifically speaking, the plot is a biological disaster. In real-life clownfish societies, the largest fish is female, and the second largest is the breeding male. If the female dies, the male transitions into a female. Yes. Physically. Fully. Completely. That means that after Nemo's mom died, Marlin, Nino's dad, would biologically change into a female, and Nemo, as the next largest male, would become Marlin's breeding partner. So the accurate version of Finding Nemo would be very different, and definitely not something you'd want to watch with your kids. But the chaos doesn't stop there. In the 1990s, Disney had to recall 3.4 million copies of The Rescuers on VHS because someone slipped a picture of a topless woman into a window in 2 frames of the movie. Not a cartoon, a real woman, meaning an animator physically inserted the photograph into the background art. It's visible only for a split second, but it's unmistakable. Disney had to pull millions of tapes off shelves and issue clean versions. Somewhere out there, whoever did it is probably still giggling. And finally, we reach perhaps the oddest pattern in Disney history. Suggestive shapes hidden everywhere. Posters, background art, castle towers, shadows, character outlines. You name it, the internet has found something in it. Whether intentional or accidental, these shapes have been spotted in countless films, from The Little Mermaid, to Aladdin, to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The most famous example is the wedding scene in The Little Mermaid, where the priest appears to have a noticeable bulge. Disney insists it's just his knee. Fans say otherwise. And honestly, it doesn't look like any knee I've ever seen. Once you notice these things, they stay with you forever. So yes, Disney is magical. But Disney is also weird, occasionally questionable, sometimes unintentionally scandalous, and full of stories far stranger than anything they put on screen. And somehow, that makes it even better. Because the truth is, Disney's imperfections are part of its charm. Behind every fairy tale is a team of humans, creative, mischievous, flawed humans, and their quirks are the reason these stories are so fascinating decades later. If you enjoyed this long, chaotic journey through Disney's most surprising secrets, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more deep dives coming that will make you laugh, question reality, and sometimes rethink your entire childhood. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.